Welcome to episode 21 of The Pulpiteer. I'm your host, Eric Hepburn, and I'm glad to have you join us for today's episode. Today's podcast is entitled The Sonny and Stella Show. This week is our first live interview episode, and my guests are Sonny and Stella, two sisters from our San Gabriel congregation who asked to interview me for their school project. It sounded like fun, so I thought we'd record it and share it with all of you. Sonny, Stella, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hello, I'm Sonny.
And I'm Stella.
I am 15, and Stella's 13, and we've been going to the San Gabriel church for about a month now, and we really like it, and yeah.
Probably 2 months.
Yeah, maybe more.
Cool. Well, it's great to have you here on the podcast, and I'm so looking forward to our interview. So y'all sent me some questions. Do you want to say them out loud for me, and then I'll answer them?
Yes. So I think it is the most important question, but what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, so when you ask old people questions, things are complicated. Like the fact that 10 years ago I got diagnosed with a dairy allergy, so I don't get to really enjoy ice cream in the old-fashioned way anymore. But I have two answers to the question. One is there's a place in downtown Austin called Gatti Ice Cream, Gati, and they make a whole bunch of non-dairy ice creams that I love. The last really good one that I had there was a honey lavender that was really fantastic. There was before that a place on Airport Boulevard that went out of business called Sweet Ritual, and they had an ice cream called Death Metal by Chocolate that was my favorite for about 4 years. During the pandemic, they died. The company died, so they don't make Death Metal by Chocolate anymore. But Death Metal by Chocolate was my favorite ice cream flavor for a good 5 years recently.
What's in it?
It was like gluten-free chocolate brownie chunks in a... I believe that one was either an almond or a sunflower ice cream base, but made kind of like a dark chocolate gelato, like really thick,
Yum.
with chunks of chocolate and chunks of brownie and chocolate ice cream, and I think even a chocolate fudge swirl. It was
a lot of chocolate.
It was a lot of chocolate.
Sounds delicious.
It was delicious. I have one more ice cream answer, which is that my sentimental favorite, when I'm feeling sentimental, is my mom's favorite ice cream was butter pecan. So if I find a good plant-based butter pecan, I usually will try it and think of her.
That sounds good. Yeah, that's a really good flavor.
Okay, so tip for tat. What are your favorite ice cream flavors?
My favorite is mint chocolate chip.
Mm.
It's one of my favorites.
Do you love the light green color?
Not
Or do you
really
prefer
the color.
or do you prefer the versions of it that are not colored?
There's this really good gelato place in Salado, and they have a really good mint chocolate chip. But I like the mixture of the really lightness of the mint and then kind of a more rich chocolatiness. It's really good. It's one of my favorites.
I think my favorite flavor is also mint chocolate chip, partially because of the color. And I also love Rocky Road because I have a lot of really good memories with Rocky Road.
Fantastic. When I was little younger than y'all, my favorite was Neapolitan because I always felt like I was cheating and getting 3 flavors for one. That felt like a really big win for me. All right, next question.
How would you spend your last day on Earth?
Well, if things were going like they usually go with people who are dying, and I didn't have a lot of energy to go have a crazy mountain climbing adventure or other fantastical adventure, I would just want to be surrounded by the people that I loved and be able to have meaningful conversations. And if I knew it was my last day, I'd want the chance to tell them how much I loved them and how much it meant for us to have been together on the journey. Now, let's talk about the more fun version of Last Day on Earth. I grew up in Florida, and I just love the beach. Like, I always feel at home at the beach. So, like, And some of my best like family vacation memories are like us hanging out on the beach together, and you've got your lawn chair and you're building a sandcastle and you're doing some body surfing and you're doing some other stuff together. So there's like a good mix of like family time and alone time and being creative and getting activity and being physical and just spending time together, but also spending time just kind of like with each other, but everybody's doing their own thing. And that always seems to happen for us at the beach. And I just love that. Like, I love that blend of all these good things together. And I love, like, that when you get home and you finally get all the sand out of the places where sand was never meant to be, that you feel both exhausted and relaxed in a way that I think is really, it's really special. Like, there's almost nothing like a good night of post-beach sleep.
Yeah.
If you avoided getting sunburned, like if you got just enough sun that you're baked, but not enough sun that you're in pain, you get some really good sleep after a good day at the beach. That'd be a pretty good way to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Okay. The next question is, what piece of clothing do you feel most yourself in?
Well, when I was in my late 20s and I had just gotten divorced after my first marriage, and I had a too fast rebound girlfriend, and then I went and lived all by myself for my first time really as a grown-up since moving away to college. I moved into this little apartment next door that was owned, it was a duplex owned by this really sweet little couple. And her brother had died the year before, and she had all these antique Guayabera shirts in her closet that didn't fit her husband because they were her brother's shirts, but they fit me. And so she gave me this stack of these like really old school, like from the 60s and 70s Guayabera shirts. Do you know this? When I say Guayabera shirt, do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay. I want you to close your eyes and picture a stereotypical Hispanic dentist or barber. You know, they wear the long shirts that come down to like mid-thigh, and they've got big pockets here, and there's usually some embroidery that goes down the front. Are you picturing what I'm talking about?
I think I can, yeah.
So they, there was a period in time where people thought of them as dentists' shirts, like dentists had a penchant for wearing Guayabera shirts. Anyway, ever since then, I've always felt really at home in those shirts. And all the shirts I got at that time have worn out by now. So I had to buy new ones that I don't quite love as much and that aren't really vintage. They're like remakes. But there's always been something like it's a mixture of casualness and playfulness that works for me. And it's kind of like I'm dressed up enough to know that, so that you know that I care, but not so dressed up that there's any pretension about it. So I really like Guayabera shirts. I also have a few like hoodies and sweatshirts that, you know, that they turn the knob to 11 on the snuggly comfort factor.
Yeah.
In a way that makes me feel very much myself when I'm in those. And I have two pairs of pants that are worth mentioning.
Okay.
I have one. You guys can see them right there hanging in that closet. They're bright green.
Oh, I see.
They're almost like leprechaun colored. Like like you feel like you put them on and you feel like I'm not sure it's okay to wear these pants on any day that's not St. Patrick's Day. But every time I put on those pants, I feel lucky, and I feel like kind of bold and flashy.
Okay.
So I love the green pants.
Right.
I have another pair of pants that I love that's slightly more problematic. It's a giant pair of like white linen pants, and it looks like something that you would expect a self-important like Zen guru to wear. Like I don't wear them very often because they almost feel like too pretentious or too like you're not really yourself. You're trying to put on a character.
Okay.
But I love those pants.
So you're either Irish or a guru. That's kind of how you feel comfortable.
I suppose I will have to admit that is the corner that I just painted myself into. Yes, fair enough.
Okay, next question.
Tell us about someone who has inspired you in a big or small way.
So my most honest answer is, and this is, in the historical figure kind of category, Gandhi is a huge influence for me. Like, here's a little story to give you a sense of how silly I am about Gandhi. So, for my 50th birthday, which was just this last year, I literally sent out social media and emails to like pretty much everybody I had a relationship with in the last 20 something years of living in Austin, and said, hey, if you feel like it, come on out on Saturday night. We're going to have an Indian buffet in the courtyard, and we're going to watch Gandhi on the screen outside. So we set up a big projector and screen out in the courtyard in front of our house, and I had a whole bunch of people show up, and we got some catered Indian food from our favorite restaurant, and people were invited to bring their favorite Indian dish, and we hung out together, and we ate a bunch of Indian food, and then we sat in the courtyard after sundown, and we all watched the 3-hour movie that is Gandhi. And I don't know, my son Simon was probably 7 years old the first time I made him sit down and watch the whole thing with me. We do it at least once or twice a year. Another weird thing for me is that, like, there are a bunch of movies on my like favorite movie list. Mm-hmm. And I can remember like about what age I was when I found them the first time. I can't put my finger on when I discovered Gandhi, like the movie, the first time, which is weird to me because like the others have come and gone, and that one's been really consistent for me from the time that I was college aged. It's funny. I took some courses in graduate school where we studied his thought, and I've, read about him, and I've read stuff that he's written. But the truth is that nothing has been as impactful for me as sort of watching and rewatching the movie. The very first sermon that I ever preached was based on the Gandhi quote from the movie. Who knows whether he ever said it in real life. But in the movie, there's a quote. He says, the only devils in the world are those running around in our own hearts. And that's where all of our battles ought to be fought. And that has always been felt really inspirational for me. This idea that the solution isn't to demonize other people, but it's to deal with our own stuff, And the other one that he says, that the other quote from the movie that's really been formative for me, especially as it relates to sort of religious and spiritual practices, is he gets very frustrated with some people who are engaged in Muslim and Hindu violence. And he says, look, I am a Muslim and a Christian and a Hindu, and so are all of you. And that has always just really stuck with me, that when it comes right down to it, like the lines that we draw between each other are just so much less powerful and important than all the things that we share with each other.
And so when you say the Gandhi movie, is it a documentary or is it like a movie made about Gandhi?
It's literally a fictional movie inspired by his real life, made by Richard Attenborough. Mm. Ben Kingsley plays Gandhi. I can't imagine that we're going to get through my first year at San Gabriel in the pulpit without me having a movie night where everybody's invited to watch Gandhi. So you can just keep your if you've never seen the movie, just keep your eye out for it. It's coming. Okay. We'll all get together and watch it together.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
On some Saturday afternoon when everybody's like, I really have nothing better to do with 3 hours. So that's my final answer.
All right. If you could go back to the age of 14, what would you do differently?
So at about the age of 14, the following thing happened in my life that at the time was annoying but not important. And as I've grown and aged, and as life has unfolded, its importance has gotten bigger and bigger in the rearview mirror for me. So what happened was kind of like this. So I was an only child for like the first 8 or 9 years. And then my sister was born. And while my sister was still an infant, my parents got divorced. And then after us being just my mom, my sister, and I for a few years, my mom got remarried. And so she got remarried when I was about 13. And so my middle sister, Kelly, well, at that time she was my youngest sister, but I had another one on the way. So my sister Kelly was, she was still in preschool when my mom married my stepdad. And so at around the age of 14, I remember this intervention where my mom and my stepdad sat me down and they were like, you treat your youngest sister like you were her parent. Like you boss her around, you tell her when she's doing stuff wrong, there were these behaviors that I did that they thought were too parental. And they were like, we want you to just be a brother. And I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, I don't know, just be a brother and stop trying to be her parent. We're her parents. And at the time, as a 14-year-old, I was just so mad at them for like asking me to do something different, but not being able to tell me what, like there was no guidance. Like from them, there was no, or my experience of it was that there was no guidance about how to do things differently. Like, so I didn't know what else to do. And so in a way that I didn't really understand at the time, I just kind of backed off. Like I didn't know what to do different. So I just stopped showing up for my sister in that way, which was maybe a relief. Maybe it was like, you know how it can be when you're a sibling and you're like, no, you're not doing that right. And no, do this other way, right?
I was that sibling.
Right.
That sibling.
But by the same token, in hindsight, my sister deserved for me not to just disappear. Does that make sense? Like, she probably needed other things from me other than me just being like, fine, I'm out, y'all. Like, I'll go do my part-time job and I'll go to school and you guys can just do whatever you want. And so the big thing that I would tell myself at 14 that I can see now in the rearview mirror is, hey, don't disappear on your sister. She needs you. So, and the sad part of this story is that my sister died of a fentanyl overdose about 3 years ago. And so, that's just really sad and tragic. And when I spoke at her funeral, I talked about how when you lose someone that young, way too young, you always wonder if there are little things that you could have done different. And for me, that was one of them. That was one of the ones that I thought, that was a moment that might have mattered to her that could have played out differently. So that's that answer.
Wow. Yeah.
So I have the reverse question for y'all. So if you could ask so we're going to do this in 2 parts. First question is, if you could ask your 50-year-old self a question, what would it be? And then you get to choose whether or not you want me to take a stab at answering as my 50-year-old self. Because I won't try to pretend that I could be your 50-year-old self.
Yeah. I like that.
I think a pretty easy thing would to be like, what mistake do I make? How can I avoid it? But I wouldn't really want to ask that because I think those mistakes are supposed to happen. So I'd probably ask, what are my favorite things to do? Like, what are my hobbies when I'm 50?
Oh. That's really interesting. What are your hobbies now?
Playing soccer, drawing, reading, playing piano. Those are my favorites right now.
Which of those things can you see yourself doing for another 40 years and still liking it?
piano.
Yeah? Cool.
I would feel the same way. I don't know if I would want to ask anything too deep or personal because I wouldn't really want to know that, I guess, now. So I'd probably ask something like, how many animals do I have or something? Because I have so many animals, and that's the most important thing to me right now. That's how many animals I have when I'm 50. It's like, okay, tell me. How many animals did I get?
No, I think that's really interesting. So I struggled with, I've had these questions for 2 weeks to think about them. And, I also struggled with exactly what you guys have put your finger on, which is this idea that, like, the wrong kind of information moving up and down the timeline might disrupt the life unfolding in the way it needs to. Right? Like, if I tell myself to avoid doing this thing, I might avoid the temporary pain of doing that thing, but I might also break what I needed to learn from that. Am I saying what I'm hearing? Mm-hmm. Like, and so, but I made myself put that on the shelf so I could come up with an answer for you. Because, right, obviously, like, if my relationship with my sister had been different starting at age 14, who knows what other things would have changed? I don't know. And if going back and changing that means that I didn't meet my wife Christy or have my son Simon, I'd be like, wait, no, never mind. Leave it the way it is. Anyway, time travel's fun to think about.
Yeah, it is.
Do y'all read science fiction?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Any favorite time travel books?
No, I don't know.
My favorite science fiction book is The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite. He was one of the first science fiction novelists, and it's really cool. It's a really good book.
It is good. What about you, Stella? Any favorite science fiction or just far out stuff?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really know how to.
Well, you like to read. What's your favorite stuff to read?
Well, right now I'm reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
That one's really hard. I don't really know what's going on, but it's really fun to be able to say I've read things like that. This year I read Percy Jackson, and I liked that. Thought I'd take a hit on something popular.
Yeah?
Did
you read the whole series, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Simon's, my son Simon, who is around y'all's age, he's 15, he's got the Percy Jackson audiobooks on repeat. It's one of his favorite. It's one of his favorite things to listen to at bedtime. So, there are certain scenes of that book that I've heard like 36 times. Now, when I was young, the other funny thing about me, so my youngest sister Erin, who was born after my mom got remarried, when she was like in preschool when I was in high school. And this was around the time that VCRs were first really popular. Like, so you could watch a movie over and over again, which when I was growing up wasn't a thing. Like, you couldn't just make a movie come on TV so you could watch it. So my little sister was the first one in our family who could watch a movie on repeat. So I'm pretty sure to this day I could pretty much recite the entire Little Mermaid. Because I saw that movie, I don't know, hundreds of times when she was between the ages of 2 and 5. That was her favorite movie.
So there's something about when you're little, you just don't get bored of stuff. You could just watch the same movie 5 times in one day and you wouldn't be bored of it.
Did you guys have favorites when you were little?
Yes. My dad, he introduced us to a lot of the oldies. So we watched a lot of Andy Griffith, and we watched Munsters, and F Troop, Popeye, stuff like that.
Wait, the cartoon Popeye or the live action?
The cartoon.
Is there a live action?
There's a live action movie with Robin Williams. It's really weird.
What?
Yeah, I don't know that I can recommend it.
That sounds really weird.
I don't know. I watched it. I remember watching it when I was younger. I didn't like it. I liked the cartoons quite a bit. They had a very Tom and Jerry kind of feel.
Good.
Yeah. I remember when I was y'all's age and a little younger, it was still back in the time where because there was no streaming or anything. Simon still freaks out when I'm it's not just that I'm older than Netflix. or older than Google. I'm older than the internet. That just breaks his poor little mind. He's like, wait, what? I don't understand what that means. I know you don't, buddy. But when I was a kid, it was still the thing where there was like a short window right after school where some cartoons were on some channels. But Saturday morning was the really like, if you wanted to get to watch some cartoons, you just had to get up early Saturday morning and like get in front of the TV with your bowl of cereal. And then you could like get in a solid 2 to 3 hours of cartoons. Because you couldn't just pull them up anytime that you wanted. Like that was when they were on. And so Saturday morning was cartoon time.
Oh, we also watched a lot of Yo Gabba Gabba. Have you ever seen that?
Simon watched that a little bit when he was little, yeah.
I don't know, there's something about that show. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
All right. Next question.
Well,
yeah.
We asked you to draw a pet, and I would like to know a little bit about.
Yeah. So here's my picture of my first animal love. His name was Morning.
Aww.
He was a small dog, like I don't know, like a 12-pound dog. He was a mutt. I think he had probably some terrier. He's very short off the ground, like, stood about, 14 inches tall off the ground. He had gray and black and brown hair, and he was shaggy. And I'll tell you a funny story, which is how Morning got his name.
Okay.
So I had been pestering my parents to get a dog, as many 5-year-olds are wont to do. And it had finally happened, and they got me a dog, and I loved that dog. And the very first morning after we brought the dog home, my dad stepped out of bed into a pile of poop. And I'm not exactly sure what my dad said, but by the time he and my mother got out of the bedroom, the dog had an official name, and his name was Morning. So my dog got named after that incident.
Oh.
So we didn't know what we were going to name him, but my dad named him that morning. Now, the sad part of the Morning story is that about 2 years later, we were living in a rental house in a little town called Titusville, Florida. And the only reason anyone would know about Titusville, Florida is if you are a follower of the space program. It is the city across the river from the place in Florida where all the space shuttles and rockets and all that stuff go up into space.
Oh.
So if you pull up the internet right now and watch the latest SpaceX launch or whatever, that's happening on the island on the east coast of Florida that's across the river from the town where I grew up, Titusville. So we were renting a house in Titusville, and it was my dad's dream to build a house. And so we built a house, and we were just about getting ready to move. And I came home from school one day, and my dog was gone. Because my dad had decided that he was not going to have a dog ruining the carpets in the new house.
That's terrible.
That was probably the first big heartbreak of my life. Yeah. That was pretty rough.
That's
Yeah, so we were together for about 2 years. Yeah. My family has had pets since. Like my stepdad had an English bulldog while he was in college, and she gave birth to a litter of puppies at his parents' house when I was y'all's age. And we adopted 2 of those puppies and brought them home and raised these 2 bulldogs from infancy. But I don't think, if I'm being honest, I never gave my heart to a pet in the same way after that experience. So you'll notice, I when I wrote Morning's name on this little piece of artwork this morning, I couldn't help but note that morning spelled with just an O sounds exactly the same as morning with a U, with an OU.
Morning.
So I wrote morning on
Very nice.
on the drawing, because that's kind of the space that it put me in. And then I felt like, so these two people are coming to talk to you for an interview, and you're going to get all morose on them. So hopefully you guys don't mind too much.
No, that was perfect. It's very good.
All right. Other questions or things you want to talk about? Things that came up during the interview today that you'd like to chat about?
I don't think so.
No, I think that was good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, how'd it feel to be on your first podcast?
Lovely.
Exciting.
Thank you so much for having us. We were just flabbergasted. We're super excited.
I feel so professional.
I just got to be on my first podcast like a little over a year ago, and I felt the same way.
So
I was
then
like,
you decided to...
and then I decided I really like that. I think I'll start my own podcast. So thank you all for being my first live guests on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you and get to know you a little bit. And, I look forward to us continuing this journey through our time together at San Gabriel. And thank you to all the listeners out there. Until next time, thank you for joining us on The Pulpiteer. The Pulpiteer Podcast is a production of the San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Georgetown, Texas. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can make a donation at sangabrieluu.org/give. The podcast is hosted by Spotify, and theme music is by John Faber. The podcast is produced and performed by Eric Hepburn. Special co-production and performance credits this week go to Sunny, and Stella. See y'all next time, and we're off next week.